Today we're in the shop of Charlotte, Michigan farmer Don Stahl, who is once again at the top of the leaderboard of the National Corn Growers Association's National Corn Yield Contest. Don, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been here before, the top of this leaderboard. What do you attribute your success to each year?
A lot of hard work over a lot of years. I work with Clay Martz and Karen Zuber, among other agronomists, and kind of over the years become a student of the crop, and we tried a lot of stuff, and we try to learn from what we do, and so that we can use it the next year. It hasn't been an easy road. I mean, we've been working at this since 2003, so first of all, we got to get our soil tests done, and we changed our grids down to 1 acre grids on our irrigated now, and everything's variable rated, and we just had to balance our fertility and try some biological products, and what worked we kept and what didn't we pitched. And evidently after, I don't know, about 10 years, we hit something right, because all the once the lid come off and the yields exploded, and then we just try to keep doing what we have been doing and kind of tweak it and see if we can't push her a little farther.
So you started out trial and error, and now you have a bit more of a formula?
We have a base plan every year going in, but the weather kind of dictates what we change, so that's part of that learning process. We've got so much information from all those years, what is it, 19 years now, that we can pretty much look back on similar years and know what worked and what didn't. And then a lot of scouting out in the field. We go out in the field every week, and at least once a week, and try to read what the crop's trying to tell us, and just apply our nutrients so the availability is there when it needs it, and never let it get stressed.
Okay. How was the 2021 growing season in particular?
It was difficult, like most of them are. I mean, it'd be great if the weather cooperated, but it never does. And it was really dry going in. We got really droughty till the end of June. Then we got 9 inches of rain. Then we went back to drought. We stayed cloudy during the rapid growth stage, and that hurt us a little bit. And then we went back to wet, and then back to drought, and then the fall was just kind of a washout, I guess you could call it. I don't know how to explain it. It just never dried up. So,
can you talk a little bit about your average yield and the differences or the nuances between that and your winning yields?
Average yields for me, we had to wait for the last field to get froze up, so I just finished corn this last Monday, a week ago today, and so I don't have it all figured out, but we'll still average over 230 on corn on our dry land. Our irrigated will be closer to 300 bushel, but I had some dry land corn that was as high as 335 for whole field averages. Our winning yields on dry land, we hit 363, but that's really good ground. That's ground that I call Central Illinois dirt, because we've got 15 CECs and 6.5% organic matter and a couple feet of topsoil, and so we can hold water, we can hold nutrients, and we've got those numbers. And as long as we get sunshine, then we don't screw it up planting. I mean, you got to prepare a good seed bed and get it in the ground uniformly. But our irrigated stuff at 465, I always said if we irrigate, we can gain 100 bushel. Now we've kind of pushed beyond that, but our yield goal is different, so our approach is different. We feed it differently. And the big thing is we got to make profit. So we have made the best money off our contest plots. I know people don't believe that, but our return on investment has been upwards of $1,500 an acre. So that is $1,500 profit.
Yeah, I mean, that is the big question people want to know. Are these high management environments profitable?
And that's the goal. I mean, if it's not, we can't afford to throw money away like anybody else. So you just got to look at your field and see what the limiting factors are and just kind of eliminate them, and then kind of inch your goals forward. To just take a field and just to throw tons of fertilizer at it and products at it, you're going to be pretty disappointed, because you got to get everything balanced out first, and that's difficult. That takes a lot of time.
Well, you've talked about this a little bit as we've gone along, but can you talk a little bit about your overall management strategy and managing inputs and that sort of thing?
Um, Everything that we do fertility-wise, we grid soil sample our irrigated ground every year on 1 acre grids, and our dry lands every other year on 2.5 acre grids, and then we variable rate apply a fertilizer. And we've done that, oh gosh, I don't even know how many years now. It's been a long, long time. And we're at a point where last year we could fix our phosphorus and our potassium, and we could fix our pH, and combine for a combined cost of about $35 an acre. So this year it's going to be double that, 60, 70 bucks an acre, but it still makes sense to do that. We don't have any of our ground that we have to go out there and do a flat rate on, and because it takes all the profit away at the fertilizer price right now. Nitrogen's going to be a little different. We use some products that gives us a little better fertilizer use efficiency. But it's still got to be there, it's got to be available. So that's going to be our biggest cost this year is nitrogen. But we were penciling it up, and on average yields around here, we can still turn a profit on a 100 bushel corn at the current price. We'll pay all of our input. So we can still see some profit there. We hope the corn price doesn't collapse, but makes you a little nervous. I mean, it's one of those things. It doesn't keep us up at night. Because like I say, we'll adapt and overcome. So we may not throw all of it out there up front. It just depends on the weather. If it's going to be a drought, you might as well put your needs out up front. If we're kind of in a rainy period, well, you don't want to do that, and then we'll come back in and we'll apply more passes, depending on what the weather gives us. So that's a tough question to answer because we don't really have that nailed down approach. You got to work with the weather.
Yeah. How about your disease prevention strategy? Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned you're scouting every week. Do you have a tried and true schedule for disease management?
As soon as we get into late June, get into rapid growth, we're looking for anything, insects, diseases, any stress we've got going on, and we have learned what products we can use to alleviate stress at times, but tar spot's going to be our big one. We know it's here forever. It's new. We sprayed fungicide on every acre last year. We didn't know what the best timing was, so we split the crop in half. I sprayed half of it at R1, half of it at R3, and R1 was the timing for this past year. So, but without it, why, you took 100 bushel less yield without spraying. So fungicide was a good investment for 2021. I'm updating the sprayer so that I don't have to depend on aerial applicators, because with every acre getting sprayed in 2022, there's not enough airplanes or ground rigs to get over all the acres. So you got to kind of plan around that too, and you got to figure out it's going to cost you. You might as well plan on $30 an acre for fungicide applications. So before you go into planting, we need to somehow figure out how you're going to put that in a program, pay for it.
I wanted to ask about planting populations. Can you talk about your planting populations last year or just in general?
It varies. It varies depending on yield goal and the field. We planted an irrigated contest plot at 50,000. We were hoping to get around 48,000 for a final stand, because that'll hopefully get us to 500 bushel. We always figure that we should be able to produce 100 bushel corn off of 10,000 plants. So I always tell guys, if you're planting 35,000 and you're not hitting 300 bushel, then the solution is probably not to up your population. You've got another limiting factor working there that you need to address first, and that's one of them things where you learn to read the crop. So even at 50,000, at 48,000 final population, we're still seeing ears full to the tip, and even some second ears. So we harvested 60,000 ears per acre on 48,000 plants. So coincidentally, that's the same number of ears that David Hula harvested, but he's kind of blowing us out of the water. So we got to kind of trick that corn plan into putting a couple more rows of kernels on an ear, and then maybe we can compete with them.
So you've said you've been doing this for 19 years. What motivates you to compete each year and to improve each year?
It's just fun. I'm competitive. You know, we want to beat ourselves. It's like everybody, we're never satisfied with our yields. We want to do better next year. It's just fun to compete. I mean, and to learn why things work and what we do, see if it does work. So I don't know how else to answer that other than I like to compete at something. Otherwise, it gets kind of boring. So,
Is there a year that stands out over the course of the past 2 decades as one that was extremely successful or you got a lot of knowledge from more than another?
not particularly. It's just we take little bits out of every year. And, you know, I always say every year, every time we thought we learned something or we thought we had something figured out, we go into the next year and we realize we didn't learn as much as we thought we did. So it's kind of humbling at times, but anytime we're over 400 bushel, we're really happy. So,
Is there anything you'd tell a young farmer or a new farmer, any advice you'd give to somebody starting out?
surround yourself with people that know what they're doing. I mean, it's a tough business and there's a ton of stress in it. So find some good contact people, work with some agronomists. Don't just go out and blanket throw new products out there. Test them out first and see what works for you, because every acre is different and every acre is going to have a different yield goal. And so you got to be realistic about that. And otherwise you're going to go broke in a hurry, especially with these fertilizer prices.
Is the competition ground that you use the same every year, or do you rotate field to field for this competition?
All of our acres, corn and soybeans, are rotated back and forth, so they're to corn every other year. But they're not always the same. I mean, our irrigated acres starting out will get the same base program. Then we'll kind of evaluate them as we go. We'll dig up roots and see what kind of root mass we have, and just evaluate plant growth, and then we'll choose basically after the V6 tissue test. We always tissue test at V6, and we've developed a scoring system where if I hit my numbers, then I know that the door is open for me to push it for ultra high yields. And if I miss my numbers, then we can't. So that'll determine which fields that we use. Going forward, soybeans, I hate to say it, but the last few years, soybeans, we really haven't done anything special on them. It's just we have good fertility and we just let them do their thing and not get them stressed out. And man, they've been producing the last few years.
I failed to mention earlier in the interview, just for you to give us kind of a snapshot or an overall look at your farm. Tell us a little bit about your operation.
Currently, I'm a 6th generation farmer, born and raised here. Graduated from Charlotte High School and went in the Marine Corps for 6 years, but I started renting my own ground when I was 14. I remember driving a stone picker tractor and picking rocks when I was 4. Remember that specifically. I was 4 years old because I got chewed out once by my grandfather because the tractor started rolling and I climbed up on it, stopped it, and he didn't like that idea, and I guess I wouldn't either if my 4-year-old was doing that. But obviously I didn't pick the 200-pounders, but you had to pick them all at that point. So I went in the Marine Corps when I was 18 for 6 years, and come back and started up again, and here we are.
Anything I didn't ask you that you think is important to mention today?
Nothing I can think of. There's probably some things, but I can't think of anything right now. It's just one of those, we just go with the flow at this point. We have fun while we're doing it. I mean, that's the big thing, is to have fun. And it's fun to win, no doubt. It's fun to win. But it's just fun to compete and see how we finish compared to all the other guys in this country, because it's really a management competition.